So we're back at it again. Today I get to do the engine mounts. So as I said before in the last video, I've got that mount and that mount. There's another one on the underside here. But I have to lift in order to get this mount out, because those bolts, those aren't bolts, they're studs, so they're kind of just sticking up. I have to lift the engine with this point here, so I just have to figure out how, because I don't have an engine lift. I did initially look into buying an engine hoist or an engine lift, but that's just not in my budget at the moment. But what I did have was an old bed frame, it was some sort of shelf that they had at work I disassembled, that they're like, yeah, you can have the wood, and a couple ratchet strips. So this is what I came up with. Sometimes it absolutely amazes me what businesses will throw away. So these are really nice 4x4 posts. And then the bed frame wasn't long enough on its own, so I kind of rigged it together. It's got a piece on the bottom as well, so for what I'm doing, I think it'll work. And considering the manual just says you're supposed to lift it by the oil pan, I wasn't very fond of doing it that way. So we'll give it a shot. I tried it once before, I just couldn't get the engine lifted enough, and I wasn't going to put that much pressure on the oil pan. You have the benefit of the bolts already loosened, and I did spray them with oil this morning. The one in the back is the one I have the most trouble with, because the stud spins, and hopefully I put enough degreaser on it now to just work. But if I can't get that one out, I'm kind of stuck. Unfortunately, this was the best configuration I could figure to get to that back bolt. And it is a 17mm socket, by the way. So unfortunately, that did not come out the way I wanted it to. I didn't think I got the back bolt off at first, because it kind of just sets in there. It's not actually threaded all the way, so it just sets right on there. Had to grab a stick with a magnet to get it off all the way. So I already took that bolt off on the front. Now I just have to get this bolt here. Now this is where my car is going to be a little unusual to everybody else's, because my brake fluid reservoir is not normal. Or no, this isn't brake, this is power steering. My power steering, this is not for Toyota. When my power steering reservoir started leaking, I didn't want to pay like the $150 for the OEM, so I just bought a Honda Civic one. And it fits just fine. I just had to use a pipe clamp on it. So you just have to remove the two 10mm bolts right there, and then you can kind of maneuver it so you can get to that last bolt. Just for reference, this bolt that was behind the brake reservoir, or again power steering reservoir, is a 14mm. Oh, I've still run into a bit of a problem. These ratchet straps are pretty much at their limit. I did put the jack underneath with a board on the oil pan like the thing says, but I think I've only gotten like a 1/4 inch at most. Ironically, that bolt's ready to pull out. Like it's like not in tension at all. I can push it in, and you know, that'll be easy to replace. This one, it's not been fun. My solution, as dumb as it is to add a second ratchet strap. I'm slowly pushing the car up in order to get this out, and like I took that bolt off. That's the primary bolts. I think what did I use? I think it was a 17 as well. All right. So after jacking up the oil pan a lot more than I wanted to, it's out. I did realize I had to remove those 2 screws so I could pull it out this way, because that seemed to be the only way I could do it. So I'm gonna wipe the grease down first and set the new one. Now with the new one, I actually did find my actual nickel anti-seize compound. So I'm on the bolt, I'm gonna stick on everything, and I'm gonna put a little bit on the ridge right where it will sit. I'll be honest, it took me a long time to get to this point. just getting this top bolt on, because you don't want to put anything else on first. The most you want to do is just get those studs aligned. So when you tighten this down, you don't want to tighten it too tight, especially when it's up in the air like this, because what it's bolting into is only attached to rubber. So I'll have to find out the torque specs, but you don't want to do too much. So now that I got that top bolt on, before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and work on this mount. But I'm going to have to change this out real quick because this is all stripped. So I've got the bolt off and the bolt's on, the nut's off. And there's two bolts that are hidden right under this access cover. So we just need to loosen them up. I should have sprayed them earlier. But loosen them up and then that assembly should pop off. Well, this kind of puts a damper on things. This is the wrong engine mount. So I'm going to have to order it. Luckily, this one's not near as hard to do as the other one. But that sucks. And yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to be a little different, but they do flex a lot. I just received the replacement. Now, it does look a little different, but from what I can tell, it should work exactly the same. And there's a noticeable difference in that. So I'll pop that in and hopefully it works great. That's about as easy as it gets. I didn't even have to jack up the vehicle, and where it's sitting, I didn't even need to put it on ramps because I'm close enough. So after getting the two bottom bolts on, not tightened all the way, slid the main bolt in, and now I can just go ahead and tighten these up. Really don't care about torque specifications. As long as it's tight, that's fine for me. Good enough. And now I just got to get that other bolt on. Got the new one on nice and tight. Don't really care about the torque on that either. I might look it up later, not 100% sure. That top bolt is 17 millimeter. Bottom bolt below is 14 millimeter. Went ahead and got the rest of the bolts on this one. Ironically, this bolt down here was the hardest to get on because I thought those other bolts would help align it, but not quite. Ended up having to grab a hook, sticking it down here. Well, it kind of clips in there. Yeah, I think it does better when it's not actually screwed down all the way. But essentially, me and my brother were just pulling on it, trying to get that bolt to align until we finally got it on. I went searching through my manual and the internet, could never find out what the torque specs for that top bolt are. It really just helps everything line up. So I think I have it mostly tight. I just don't want to over tighten it and break the rubber that holds it together. Then I just got all the other 10 millimeter bolts back on. Went ahead and set it up on ramps just to take a look at everything. The oil pan looks the same. I did, this is from bottoming out ages ago, so that's all normal. And nothing seems to have deflected with the pan at all, so I think we're good. I do have an exhaust leak I'm going to try to look at. Pretty sure it's just the flex pipe back here. This is like the third or fourth time I've replaced this pipe. They just disintegrate. So while I was down here replacing the flex pipe, I found that other mount that was in that kit that I bought. Turns out, there's nothing holding that together. Great. So I am going to unbolt that real quick. Guess I don't have to worry about it falling since it's, you know, not doing nothing. So it's easier to unbolt the muffler here. And yes, my bolts are weird. I had to like jerry rig it in order to get this to work. Yeah, move the flex pipe out of the way, then you can access those bolts pretty easy. So I got it out. It was a little weird. It's got this tab in there that you gotta kind of have to squeeze to push through. The new one doesn't have it, but I guess I can just transfer this over to that and then install it back in. So ignore that. The hole sizes are a little different on them. So I'm just not going to use it. So got the new one on. It's kind of awkward spot to get it in place. I ended up just kind of taking the screwdriver and kind of working it in because this back spot likes to hit this lip down here. Then of course I forgot to mention you got the 2 bolts on the bottom, 2 bolts up there, and then just make sure to put that little cover plate back on that hole. So I've been putting this one off for a while now. I think it's been a couple months since I filmed the last section. This is the bottom underneath transmission mount, whatever you want to call it for this one. There's a lot of work to be done. I built some wooden wheel cradles, even though I'm not putting them on the wheels themselves right now. It's just going to kind of support me a little bit. So this is going to be a little hard to film what I'm looking at here. So up, here's your transmission pan. Transmission, and then up in here is where that last one is. Which I still don't know how I'm going to approach this. First off, I've got to remove the subframe to even get to the piece here. Like, I mean, I'm sure I could remove the bolts. I don't even know. I doubt that piece can come out, right? Just on its own. Yeah, it's just like up in the subframe. So I guess I'll start by unbolting that. Now, I didn't notice it until now. I figured it was bad, but just to show, I'm going to move the tire by hand here. And watch how far this thing actually, oh gosh, I can't hold my hand steady. I don't know if you can see that much, but it's pretty significantly moving a lot, so pretty sure that piece is completely worn. I very shortly tried to unbolt the 19mm, actually I don't even know, I think it's 19mm subframe bolts, but I just have to admit my little 3/8 inch sockets are not going to handle that. So I'm going to go to Harbor Freight and get some 1/2 inch sockets. Okay, so got the 2 bolts off of there, 2 bolts off of there, 2 bolts holding the center on. This piece comes off, and honestly, it was a little bit easier to do than I thought now that I have the 1/2 inch stuff. So it's really hard to film under this, but I took off the 2 bolts under here. I took off the bolt that was holding that guy in place, and I'm not sure, maybe I could just remove it now? I'll have to I'll have to set the camera down. So it didn't do what I wanted. Unfortunately, it's stuck in there pretty good. I think if I take off these 2 bolts, I might be able to pop everything down. So I'm gonna kind of put some supports on here and hope for the best. So I finally got it out. Honestly, it's not as bad as I thought. I don't know what will happen when I put the new one in. There's only one more engine mount to replace, and I don't have it yet. I don't think it's that bad, so I'm just gonna leave it for now. But yeah, this one's definitely like cracked up and stuff, but honestly, it's not too bad. I ended up having to take the 2 other bolts out of the engine mount that I had just recently done. I did take those 2 back bolts out, took the bolt that was holding that, that's the shifter cable, and then I just loosened these guys up, and I was able to pull this down enough to get to what I needed. So I'm going to clean up some stuff, and then I'll put it back together. So it's been a couple months now since I put the mounts in, and the one thing that you might be able to tell from the picture here is those 2 mounts are not exactly the same. The new mount had about a 2mm gap, so I ended up having to put a sleeve in with the bolt. I don't know if the bolt was supposed to be bigger or what, but it definitely was smaller. So the sleeve works perfectly fine. I just took a piece of I think it was 1/2 inch EMT pipe. I cut a I think it was about that long, about 1.5 inches. Cut a slit down until the size matched up, essentially. And yeah, put it all back together. It's been working fine. Now, one thing that I still have to fix that I will get to eventually, but right now I just don't have time to do, the subframe bolts on the front here. So, the subframe bolts, as you can see, the one's in fine. The other one, not so much. So I'm not exactly sure. I'm guessing it is a, inbuilt nut, but I can't remove either one of these to get it off. So I'm gonna have to, like, cut an access here and then re-bolt it up. That way it's nice and secure, because there's nothing, like, I can't reach anywhere to access that. It just spins, you know. It's not stripped, it just can't be screwed in. So that's something that I'll have to work on, but for now, the big thing is actually going to be on the rust that I'm fixing. That's all I have for you for this video. I guess the next video that I'll probably have up is going to be the rust hole video that I have. So I'm only about halfway done. I dug out all the metal. Now I've got to actually patch it, but I'm being lazy. So see you in the next video.